In Islam, there's this really fascinating idea that God didn't just send one single message to humanity, but a whole series of them. Think of it like a chain of divine books, each revealed over thousands of years. So today, we're going to follow that chain and really try to understand what it all means.
And this quote, this is basically the foundation for everything we're about to talk about. It reframes the whole idea of revelation, right? It's not some one-and-done event. It's more like an ongoing conversation between God and humanity. It's this incredible story that unfolds throughout our entire history.
Okay, so where does this whole chain of guidance even start? Well, let's go all the way back and look at the earliest revelations, the books that are believed to have paved the way for everything that came after. So the first link in the chain that's mentioned are the Scrolls of Abraham. Now, these are considered some of the earliest divine texts, and they establish that core message, monotheism, the belief in one and only one God, and of course, the importance of just living a good moral life. But here's the thing you gotta know. These original scrolls, they're believed to be lost to time. They don't exist anymore.
All right, from those early scrolls, the chain keeps going. And the next link is a book that I'm sure is a lot more familiar to many of you, the Torah.
Now, what's really important to get here is the specific purpose of the Torah within this tradition. It's believed to have been revealed to the prophet Moses, and it was meant to be a book of divine law, a really detailed guide made specifically for the children of Israel at that particular time in history. And this brings us to a really crucial distinction in Islamic belief. So while the original Torah is seen as a pure revelation straight from God, the version that we have today, well, it's understood to have been changed over the centuries, which means it's not exactly identical to that first original message.
Okay, the next link in the chain has a completely different feel to it. We're talking about the Psalms, or the Zabur, which were given to Prophet David. See, unlike the Torah, which was all about law, the Psalms were purely devotional, just a beautiful collection of prayers, hymns, and songs praising God.
So, the chain of guidance keeps on going, moving forward through history to the next big revelation, the Gospel, or the Injil, which of course is central to the Christian faith.
From the Islamic perspective, the Gospel was the revelation given to the prophet Jesus, or Isa. And its core message? Well, it reaffirmed that belief in one God, but it also brought this powerful new focus on mercy, compassion, and just living a good, righteous life.
And you guessed it, just like with the Torah, we see that same really important distinction here. The belief is in the divine origin of the original gospel that was revealed to Jesus, but it's also understood that the texts we have in the Bible today aren't an identical one-to-one copy of that very first revelation.
So, we've seen this whole sequence of revelations, right? Each one for a specific time and for a specific group of people. And that brings us to what Islam considers the final message, the very last, culminating link in this entire divine chain. And that, of course, is the Quran. It's believed to be the final revelation from God, given to the final prophet, Muhammad, peace be upon him. It's really seen as the capstone, the completion of this entire history of divine guidance.
So, what makes the Quran different in this belief system? Well, it really comes down to three key things. First, it's the final one. It's seen as the last book, the final word from God. Second, it's for everyone. Unlike earlier books for specific groups, this one's considered a message for all of humanity, for all time. And third, and this is a huge one, is the belief that it's been perfectly preserved, that the text we read today is exactly the same as what was originally revealed.
Okay, all of this leads to a very logical question, doesn't it? If the message is from the same God, why so many different books? So let's explore this idea of kind of correcting the course over time.
I mean, this really is the big question, right? Why a whole series? Why not just drop one book at the very beginning and call it a day? Let's break down the thinking behind this whole step-by-step approach.
Well, from the Islamic viewpoint, it boils down to three main reasons. First, people just forget. The original message can get diluted over generations. Second, the texts themselves get changed. Humans get involved, things get altered, misinterpreted. And third, well, societies change. As we evolve, we face new and more complex problems, and the guidance kind of needs to keep up.
So, you see, the purpose of each new revelation wasn't to just cancel out the old one. It was all about course correcting. Each book came to say, hey, remember the one true God? And to fix the little changes and errors that had crept into the message before it, and to give guidance that was complete and relevant for that specific time.
Okay,
So what does all this mean for a Muslim today? Like, how do they actually relate to this whole chain of books? This is where we get into this idea of believing in one single source, but following one final path. And this is a really fundamental concept. A Muslim has to believe in the divine origin of all the previous books, the scrolls, the Torah, the Psalms, the Gospel, the whole lot. But, and this is the key, for day-to-day guidance, they follow the Quran. Why? Because it's considered the final, the complete, and the perfectly preserved version of God's message.
So let's just run through that chain one last time to lock it in. It starts with the scrolls of Abraham. Then we have the Torah of Moses. Then the Psalms of David. After that, the Gospel of Jesus. And it all culminates with the Quran, revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
And really, this is the big takeaway. The core idea is that all of these messages come from the exact same divine source. So they aren't seen as competing religions, but more like different chapters in one single, long, unfolding story. And in that story, the Quran is seen as the final, complete, and perfectly preserved chapter for all of us.
So, I'll leave you with this to think about. If we start to see these great historical faiths not as totally separate things, but as interconnected parts of one single continuous story, how does that change the way we look at history? How does it change our understanding of the connection between them? It's a pretty profound thought, right? This idea of unity, of a shared heritage. Thanks for joining me for this.